Edith Cowan was a pioneer for women's and children's rights at the turn of the century. She led the fight for massive social changes at a time when women were treated as second-class citizens. As the first woman elected to an Australian Parliament, Edith proved that persistence pays. Much of what she struggled to achieve stemmed from her tragic childhood. Born Edith Brown in 1861, she lived on a property near Geraldton, north of Perth. She was 7 when her mother died in childbirth. Her father didn't cope and sent Edith and her older sister to boarding school. He later remarried, but one day, after a bout of heavy drinking, he shot and killed his second wife. Edith was a teenager when her father hanged for his crime.
To live with that, I think, must have been almost impossible, and I think anyone who wasn't crushed by that was obviously a very strong person.
At 17, Edith married James Cowan. They were to have 5 children and spent much of their married life in Perth's beachside suburb of Cottesloe. Through her husband's work at the Supreme Court, Edith witnessed the injustice of the legal system at that time. Beating your wife when drunk, for example, was regrettable but not too serious in the court's eyes. Women weren't encouraged to be educated, but Edith knew education was the key to achieving social change. She joined and eventually became president of a women's group called the Karrakatta Club.
People think of the Karrakatta Club as sort of just a ladies' social club. Well, it was not. They got down to doing what was a pretty solid kind of job of educating themselves for the kind of life they believed they ought to be able to take.
Women wanted the right to vote. Edith campaigned hard. In 1899, women celebrated. The cause had been won. The welfare of all women, including prostitutes, worried Edith.
She was considered to be quite an indecent woman because she would go down there and talk to them and see them. I mean, they didn't make a fortune in those days.
Nor did women receive adequate medical care. Another area of social justice Edith challenged.
In her time, the hospitals were so bad that some of them were sort of death sentenced. And she worked very hard at that.
The building of Perth's King Edward Hospital for Women was largely thanks to Edith. She also founded the Children's Protection Society, which in turn led to the establishment of special children's courts. Children, Edith argued, should not be tried as adults. When World War I broke out, Edith's compassionate nature again shone through. She collected food, clothing and useful articles for soldiers at the front. As chairperson of the Red Cross Appeal Committee, her energy went towards helping the wounded. In 1920, this tireless work earned Edith the Order of the British Empire. In that same year, the West Australian Parliament passed a bill allowing women to be elected. Edith stood for the seat of West Perth. By now, she was 60 years old and had more than 30 years of public service behind her.
I don't think her own party had taken seriously the thought that she might win this seat.
Much to everyone's surprise, Edith won. Curious onlookers packed the public gallery for her formal introduction to Parliament. Newspaper cartoons joked about Edith's election as being the end of male domination of politics.
There now, don't let me have to speak to you again. I will not have your litter on my clean floors.
There was a sort of irony in that, now she would sweep all the men off the floor and so on. Well, the men were pretty scared this could happen if enough of the women got in and they didn't want it to happen.
Again championing equal rights, Edith pushed laws through Parliament which opened the legal profession to women. A clear and forceful speaker, Australia's first female politician proved herself easily equal to any man. Ill health forced Edith to withdraw from public life during her last years. She died in 1932 at the age of 71. 2 years later, this clock tower at the entrance to Perth's Kings Park was erected in her memory. More recently, her portrait has been printed on Australia's $50 note.